This is one of the most uncomfortable questions men ever ask. Why do women choose toxic men over good men? Men ask it after being ignored, after being replaced, after doing everything right and still losing. And most answers they hear are comforting lies. She's broken. She likes drama. She doesn't know what she wants. She'll regret it. Those explanations protect the ego, but they hide the truth. Because women don't choose toxic men despite their flaws. They choose them because of something most good men lack. And that thing has nothing to do with cruelty, manipulation, or bad behavior. The dark psychological truth is this. Women are not attracted to toxicity. They are attracted to emotional impact. And most good men accidentally remove all emotional impact from themselves. Here's the part nobody wants to admit. A man can be kind, respectful, loyal, and emotionally available, and still feel invisible. Because attraction does not respond to morality, it responds to emotional polarity. Toxic men create polarity without trying. Good men often destroy it while trying to be safe. That is the real reason this happens. Most good men think toxic men are chosen because they are confident or dominant. That's not the core reason. The core reason is that toxic men are emotionally unpredictable, but internally self-referenced. They do not orient their emotional state around the woman, and that creates intensity. Good men, on the other hand, often do the opposite. They orient themselves around her comfort, her feelings, her reactions, her approval. And the moment a man does that, attraction collapses. Not because he's bad, but because he stopped being emotionally sovereign. Here is the uncomfortable truth nobody explains properly. Women do not feel desire from men who emotionally collapse into accommodation. Accommodation removes tension. Tension fuels attraction. Most good men remove tension intentionally. They think it creates safety. But safety without tension feels flat, and flatness feels like friendship. This is where the confusion starts. Good men assume women choose toxic men because they enjoy pain. That's not what's happening. Women are choosing emotional intensity, not emotional damage. Toxic men provide intensity because they do not regulate themselves around women. They don't soften to be chosen. They don't adjust to be liked. They don't abandon themselves to maintain connection. That creates emotional gravity, not because it's healthy, but because it feels alive. Good men often make one critical mistake. They mistake being emotionally safe for being emotionally neutral. They remove polarity. They remove challenge. They remove unpredictability, and without realizing it, they remove attraction. Another uncomfortable truth is this. Toxic men are not chosen because they are mean. They are chosen because they do not seek validation. They are self-referenced. Their emotional state belongs to them. Good men often give that power away. They become emotionally dependent on her response. That dependence is felt instantly, and dependence kills desire. Here's something most men don't understand. A woman's nervous system is constantly scanning one question. Is this man solid within himself, or does he need me to stabilize him? Toxic men, for all their flaws, usually pass this test. Good men often fail it. Not because they're weak, but because they over-invest emotionally. They over-accommodate, they over-explain, they over-prove, all of which signal instability. Another dark truth is this. Women do not choose toxic men because they are bad. They choose them because they feel emotionally uncontained around good men. Good men often leak emotion constantly. They reassure, they validate, they adjust, they chase harmony. That leakage removes mystery, removes polarity, removes desire. Toxic men do not chase harmony. They remain themselves, regardless of reaction. That creates friction. Friction creates feeling. Feeling creates attraction. This does not mean toxic behavior is good. It means emotional self-abandonment is unattractive, and many good men unknowingly abandon themselves. Another uncomfortable truth is that good men often confuse self-sacrifice with love. But sacrifice does not create attraction, it creates obligation. Obligation kills desire. Toxic men do not sacrifice themselves emotionally. They remain intact. That intactness is felt. Another layer most men miss is this. Women do not choose men based on how well they treat them. They choose men based on how they feel around them. Feeling alive beats feeling safe every time. Safety without aliveness feels empty. This is why women often say things like, "I don't know why I'm drawn to him." They do know. Their nervous system does. Another dark truth nobody talks about is this. Toxic men are often emotionally unavailable, and emotional unavailability creates pursuit. Pursuit creates desire. Good men often remove pursuit by being too available. Availability without boundaries removes polarity. Another uncomfortable realization is that women are not attracted to men who center their lives around them. They are attracted to men who center their lives around themselves. Toxic men do this naturally. Good men often stop doing it. And that is the turning point. This is why being good is not enough, because goodness without self-command feels weak, and attraction does not respond to weakness. It responds to grounded presence. This is only the first layer of the psychology, because once you understand this, the narrative changes completely. You stop asking why women choose toxic men, and you start asking why so many good men unconsciously remove the very qualities that make attraction possible. And that is where the real explanation begins. Once you understand this, another uncomfortable pattern becomes obvious. Toxic men do not make women feel chosen. They make women feel activated. And activation is what most good men unknowingly eliminate. Good men often lead with reassurance. They clarify intentions early. They remove uncertainty. They promise consistency. They try to make her feel safe immediately. That sounds right, but psychologically it removes tension before attraction has space to grow. Toxic men do the opposite, not intentionally, but naturally. They don't rush to reassure. They don't explain themselves. They don't seek agreement. Their emotional state remains self-contained. That creates uncertainty, and uncertainty keeps the nervous system engaged. Another dark truth is this. Women don't chase toxic men because they are mistreated. They chase because they are not centered around. When a man does not emotionally orbit a woman, she becomes curious about him. Curiosity is the seed of desire. Good men often kill curiosity by making everything clear too soon. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men are not emotionally expressive. They are emotionally opaque. Opacity invites projection. Projection intensifies attachment. Good men often overshare. Oversharing collapses mystery. Mystery sustains attraction. Another deep truth is this. Toxic men are often inconsistent. Inconsistency creates highs and lows. Highs and lows create intensity. Intensity feels like passion. Good men often aim for emotional stability from the start. Stability without polarity feels dull. This does not mean inconsistency is healthy. It means premature stability kills desire. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men are not afraid of losing women. That fearlessness is felt instantly. Good men often fear loss. Fear leaks into behavior. Leakage kills attraction. Another dark truth is this. Women are not drawn to chaos. They are drawn to men who are unmoved by chaos. Toxic men appear unmoved. Good men often become reactive. Reactivity feels unsafe. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men do not try to earn affection. They assume space. Assuming space feels confident. Good men often ask for space. Asking feels subordinate. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men are not afraid of losing women. That fearlessness is felt instantly. Good men often fear loss. Fear leaks into behavior. Leakage kills attraction. Another dark truth is this. Women are not drawn to chaos. They are drawn to men who are unmoved by chaos. Toxic men appear unmoved. Good men often become reactive. Reactivity feels unsafe. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men do not try to earn affection. They do not try to earn affection. They assume it will either happen or not. That detachment feels powerful. Good men often try to earn affection. Earning feels transactional. Transactions kill desire. Another deep truth is this: women do not choose toxic men because they lack empathy. They choose them because toxic men do not outsource their emotional regulation. Their emotions belong to them. Good men often give that job to women. That responsibility feels heavy. Heavy emotions push desire away. Another uncomfortable realization is that good men often confuse emotional availability with emotional dependence. Availability is attractive, dependence is not. Toxic men are rarely dependent. Another deep truth is that toxic men maintain emotional hierarchy without trying. Not dominance, hierarchy of self-reference. They reference themselves first. Good men often reference women first. Hierarchy reversal kills attraction. Another uncomfortable truth is this: women are not attracted to men who live to please them. Pleasure feels good, but being the source of a man's identity feels suffocating. Another deep truth is that toxic men remain themselves even when women disapprove. That self-trust feels strong. Good men often adjust themselves to avoid disapproval. Adjustment feels weak. Another uncomfortable realization is that women choose toxic men because they feel emotionally led, not emotionally catered to. Leadership here is internal, not control. Another deep truth is this: good men often mistake kindness for attraction. Kindness builds trust, but trust without tension feels platonic. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men create tension simply by not needing approval. That tension keeps desire alive. Another deep truth is that women are not attracted to suffering. They are attracted to emotional self-command. Toxic men accidentally display self-command. Good men often abandon it in pursuit of harmony. Another uncomfortable realization is that attraction is not about being good or bad, it is about being self-directed. Self-directed men feel compelling. Other-directed men feel invisible. This is why women so often say, "He's not good for me, but I can't stop thinking about him." Their mind knows, their nervous system decides, and the nervous system responds to emotional polarity, not moral value. Once you understand this, the question changes. It stops being, "Why do women choose toxic men?" And it becomes, "Why do good men erase the very traits that make attraction possible?" And that's where the real solution begins to emerge. Once this clicks, another uncomfortable reality surfaces. Good men are not rejected because they are boring. They are rejected because they neutralize polarity. Polarity is the emotional difference between two people. It's the tension created when one person is grounded and the other feels drawn. Toxic men preserve polarity by never collapsing into the woman emotionally. Good men often destroy polarity by merging. They mirror too much. They agree too much. They adapt too quickly. And adaptation feels safe, but safety without polarity feels lifeless. Another dark truth nobody wants to hear is this: women do not want men who disappear inside the relationship. They want men who remain intact. Toxic men remain intact because they never hand their identity over. Good men often do. They stop prioritizing their life. They soften their boundaries. They compromise themselves early. And that self-erasure is felt instantly. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men are not afraid of emotional friction. They don't rush to smooth things over. They let discomfort exist. Discomfort creates emotional charge. Charge keeps attraction alive. Good men often fear friction. They rush to resolve tension. But tension resolved too early becomes neutrality. Neutrality kills desire. Another deep truth is this: women are not attracted to men who seek emotional peace. They are attracted to men who can hold emotional pressure without collapsing. Pressure reveals strength. Avoidance reveals fragility. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men do not ask women how to feel. They allow women to feel whatever arises. Good men often try to guide emotions. Guidance feels controlling. Allowance feels freeing. Another dark truth is this: women are not drawn to men who explain themselves endlessly. Explanation feels defensive. Toxic men rarely explain. They assume their position. Assumption feels confident. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men do not chase emotional alignment. They do not need agreement. Good men often seek alignment to feel secure. Security seeking reverses polarity. Another deep truth is this: women are attracted to men who can withstand disapproval. Disapproval tests emotional solidity. Men who crumble fail. Men who remain grounded pass. Toxic men often pass because they don't hinge their self-worth on approval. Good men often fail because they do. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men do not emotionally collapse when women pull away. They don't panic. They don't explain. They don't chase. They continue living. That continuity feels powerful. Good men often pause their lives. Pause signals dependency. Dependency kills attraction. Another deep truth is this: women are not attracted to emotional availability alone. They are attracted to emotional containment. Contained emotion feels controlled. Uncontained emotion feels overwhelming. Good men often overflow. Toxic men often contain. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men rarely seek reassurance. They don't ask where they stand. They don't clarify feelings. They don't seek guarantees. That uncertainty keeps attraction alive. Good men often seek certainty. Certainty closes emotional loops. Closed loops end desire. Another deep truth is this: women do not choose toxic men because they lack self-worth. They choose them because toxic men project self-reference. Self-reference is grounding. Grounding attracts. Another uncomfortable realization is that good men often become emotionally predictable. Predictability feels safe, but safety without tension feels dull. Toxic men remain unpredictable because they are self-driven. Another deep truth is this: women are not attracted to men who sacrifice themselves to be loved. They are attracted to men who love without self-sacrifice. Sacrifice feels heavy. Choice feels free. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men are often emotionally unavailable because they are emotionally complete within themselves. Good men often make women their emotional home. That responsibility feels suffocating. Another deep truth is this: women do not want to be the center of a man's emotional universe. They want to be invited into it. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men do not emotionally chase resolution. They allow things to remain undefined. Undefined space allows desire to stretch. Good men often rush definition. Definition ends tension. Another deep truth is that women are not attracted to emotional intensity alone. They are attracted to emotional restraint. Restraint signals control. Control feels safe to desire. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men often feel dangerous emotionally, not because they are violent, but because they are unmoved. Unmoved men feel rare. Rarity attracts. Another deep truth is this: good men are not losing because they are good. They are losing because they confuse goodness with self-abandonment, and attraction cannot survive around self-abandonment. Once you see this, the picture changes. This is not about becoming toxic. It's about reclaiming what good men often give up: their center, their pace, their emotional sovereignty. And once that is reclaimed, something surprising happens. Women stop choosing toxic men over good men because the good man no longer feels neutral. He feels grounded, alive, unmovable, and that is when attraction finally makes sense. Once this distinction is clear, the mistake good men make becomes impossible to ignore. They try to compete with toxic men on behavior. They become colder, they pull back artificially, they imitate indifference, and it never works. Because attraction is not about copying external traits, it's about internal orientation. Toxic men don't create attraction because they withdraw. They create attraction because they are not emotionally oriented around the woman. That orientation is what matters. A good man can be warm, present, and kind, and still feel deeply attractive if his emotional center stays intact. Another uncomfortable truth is this: good men often make women the emotional judge of their worth. They wait for approval, they look for signs, they adjust based on feedback. That makes the woman the authority. Authority reversal kills attraction. Toxic men never hand over authority. They remain self-referenced. Another deep truth is that women do not want to be chased emotionally. They want to feel chosen without being needed. Chosen feels powerful. Needed feels heavy. Good men often blur that line. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men don't seek emotional fairness. They don't balance effort. They don't track who invested more. They act from desire, not obligation. Obligation drains attraction. Another deep truth is this: good men often lead with emotional transparency before emotional polarity exists. Transparency without polarity feels overwhelming. Toxic men delay transparency naturally. Mystery forms first. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men are not afraid of being misunderstood. They don't rush to clarify. They don't defend their image. That emotional nonchalance feels strong. Good men often fear being misread. Fear leads to over-explaining. Over-explaining kills tension. Another deep truth is this: women are attracted to men who do not emotionally flinch. Flinching reveals fragility. Toxic men rarely flinch. Good men often do. Another uncomfortable realization is that good men try to make women comfortable. Toxic men let women self-regulate. Self-regulation builds desire. Being regulated builds dependence. Another deep truth is that women are not attracted to men who constantly reassure. Reassurance collapses uncertainty. Uncertainty fuels attraction. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men do not emotionally chase validation. They validate themselves. Self-validation feels grounded. Another deep truth is that good men often shrink to avoid conflict. Shrinking kills polarity. Toxic men remain the same size regardless of reaction. Another uncomfortable realization is that women do not want men who solve emotional tension too fast. They want men who can hold it. Holding tension creates intensity. Releasing it removes charge. Another deep truth is this: toxic men often feel intense because they are emotionally self-contained. Good men feel soft because they leak emotion. Another uncomfortable realization is that women are not attracted to men who revolve emotionally. They are attracted to men who stand in values, stand in pace, stand in self-respect. Another deep truth is that toxic men do not change who they are to keep women. They are willing to lose them. That willingness is felt as power. Good men often change to avoid loss. That fear is felt. Another uncomfortable realization is that women do not choose toxic men because they hate good men. They choose them because good men unintentionally remove tension. Another deep truth is that attraction does not reward niceness, it rewards grounded presence. Another uncomfortable realization is that good men often give women emotional control. Control feels burdensome. Toxic men keep emotional control with themselves. Another deep truth is that women are attracted to men who are okay being alone. Aloneness signals wholeness. Wholeness attracts. Another uncomfortable realization is that toxic men often feel rare, not because they are better, but because they are unmoved. Unmoved men feel scarce, and scarcity attracts. Another deep truth is this: good men are not wrong, they are simply misdirected. They aim their goodness outward instead of grounding it inward, and when goodness is grounded, it becomes strength, not weakness. This is the turning point, because once a good man stops abandoning himself, he doesn't need to become toxic. He becomes solid, and solidity is what attraction responds to. This is where the narrative flips completely, because now the question is no longer about toxic men, it's about why grounded men are irresistible. And that's where everything finally comes together. The final truth that ties everything together is this: women do not choose toxic men because they are toxic. They choose men who do not abandon themselves. Toxic men often keep their center by accident. Good men often lose it on purpose. And attraction always follows the man who stays centered. This is why becoming colder never works. This is why copying toxic behavior backfires, because the goal was never emotional distance. The goal was emotional self-command. Another uncomfortable truth is this: women are not looking for men who never hurt them. They are looking for men who do not need them to feel whole. Wholeness feels safe to desire. Need feels suffocating. Another deep truth is that attraction does not care about fairness. It cares about emotional gravity. Gravity pulls. Pleasing pushes. Another uncomfortable realization is that women do not stay with men who place them above themselves. They stay with men who stand beside themselves. Another deep truth is that attraction grows when a man does not compromise his identity to preserve connection. Connection without identity feels hollow. Another uncomfortable realization is that women are not attracted to men who are endlessly understanding. They are attracted to men who are self-directed. Direction creates momentum. Momentum creates desire. Another deep truth is that women are not rejecting good men. They are rejecting men who disappear inside goodness. Another uncomfortable realization is that attraction survives only when a man continues choosing himself, even when he chooses her. Self-choice is magnetic. Another deep truth is that women are not confused by attraction. Men are, because men are taught to earn what must be allowed. Another uncomfortable realization is that attraction does not respond to being needed. It responds to being invited. Another deep truth is that women choose men who feel emotionally sovereign. Sovereign men are not perfect, they are not always kind, but they are self-contained. And self-containment is what makes desire feel alive. Another uncomfortable realization is that women do not want to be the emotional center of a man's life. They want to be a part of it. Another deep truth is that attraction does not reward sacrifice, it rewards self-respect. Another uncomfortable realization is that good men lose attraction when they try to be chosen instead of choosing. Choice reverses polarity. Another deep truth is this: women are not choosing toxic men. They are choosing men who feel grounded, unmovable, and self-directed. Toxicity is incidental. Grounded presence is essential. And the moment a good man reclaims his center, something shifts. He stops feeling invisible. He stops feeling overlooked. He stops feeling like he has to compete. Because attraction begins responding naturally. Not because he changed who he was, but because he stopped giving himself away. Now, if this video finally helped you understand why women seem to choose toxic men and what's really happening beneath the surface, there's one video you should watch next. Because this pattern only makes sense once you understand how attraction actually works at its core. That's exactly what I explain in my video called "The Dark Truth About Female Attraction Nobody Talks About." That video connects everything you learned here and shows how attraction responds to emotional positioning, not behavior. Watch that next, because once you see the full picture, you stop blaming women, you stop blaming yourself, and you stop trying to become someone else. You simply become solid. And solidity is what attraction has been responding to all along.